Hi everyone, FIDE Master Dennis Monokroussos here with some bonus coverage for you, or a bonus video at any rate. So for those of you who found 70 minutes really a long time, and either are exhausted from having watched it, or are too exhausted by the thought of even watching it, here's a much shorter video to keep you amused until the next week's video. So this is a recent Blitz game I played. It's kind of silly to analyze Blitz games, but everyone else here does it, so I'll join in as well, at least as a bonus. I don't know if I can justify making it the real video, but as a little fun thing on the side every so often, why not? So this was played recently. I had black, and my opponent played the King's Gambit. Now, there is a rule of thumb that says that the older player will win in the King's Gambit, whichever side, and I've generally found that to be true. But that said, I generally try to avoid the main line, certainly in Blitz. I used to play d5 pretty often. Now, sometimes I play e takes f4, but I also play this knight to c6 line. And the intent is to follow, or is to meet knight f3 with f5. Of course, not f takes e5. This is bad after practically every black second move except for knight to f6 because of queen h4 check, followed by queen takes e4, and white just gets destroyed. But my opponent played knight to c3, and I know this move. I mean, I knew this from when I was a kid, from the so-called Hamppe-Allgaier Gambit, which we've transposed into. There's a very famous game between Corzo and Capablanca in their match for the Cuban Championship back in 1901, I think it was. And Capablanca with black won a beautiful game. But I remember, at least when I was young, the thought was that white was doing all right in this variation. And so I kind of developed this irrational fear of it. So even now, I mean, for a long time it never came up, because usually this arises via knight c3, and then if black plays knight to c6 rather than knight f6 being the main move, then white can play f4. But since I didn't play two knight to c6 against the Vienna, and since, as I said, for quite a while I played d5 against the King's Gambit, it wasn't an issue. So occasionally over the years this has come up, and I had to think here. So in the past, after knight to c3, I think a couple of times I've even played bishop to b4. And the idea is that if white plays f takes e5, I can still do the same queen h4 trick, h4 check trick. Although now it's not really as serious, because king to d2 and queen takes e4 no longer comes with check. So bishop to b4 is kind of interesting. But anyway, white doesn't play f takes e5. Usually knight f3 or knight to d5 or even bishop to c4 are the choices that white makes. So I remember, again, playing bishop to b4 a couple of times. I think once I did well. The other time I got in trouble. Maybe I lost the game, but certainly my position from the opening wasn't quite fantastic. So I decided, after thinking for a while, to just kind of man up, as the phrase goes, and take on f4. Alright, so now the main move is knight f3. Black plays g5, and it's like a regular King's Gambit, with the exception, of course, that both sides have developed their queen knight, and in certain ways both sides benefit. So sometimes the knight on c6 can be good if black can muster pressure against the d4 pawn. Also, white with his knight on c3 can't play any kind of setup with c3 and d4. So that's the good news for black. Of course, the bad news is that sometimes white kicks the knight with d4, d5, and white has further developed. So pros and cons here. Anyway, at this point, white can play either h4, which I think is the main move, or d4. They've both been played. They're both reasonable moves. All right, but my opponent played d4, and this I knew just couldn't be right. Of course, I have to play queen h4 check. So it's like the Steinitz Gambit in the King's Gambit proper. So f4, e takes f4, and then here knight to c3. And this is not considered very good. Steinitz's idea was that he would induce this check with an eye to later playing knight f3, thinking that, all right, the white king is experiencing mild discomfort, but nothing serious. I mean, he'll play knight f3, the king will, he'll play knight f3, the king will go to f2, he'll play d4, and the king is fine on f2. He'll castle by hand, and meanwhile the black queen is not brilliantly placed and may end up going back to d8, or if it goes to h5 to try to justify its existence there, then perhaps white will play knight to d5 and try to exploit this pawn on c7. So anyway, here the right move, well, I'll come back to this position. So back to the game. Knight c3, okay, f4, knight c6, knight c3, ef4, d4, queen h4 check, king e2. So here I remembered from the Steinitz line to play d5, but it's not perhaps the best move here. It is the best move in the Steinitz proper. Knight c3, queen h4, king e2, d5. So here this is the right move. It's the best move. It scores really well, and it prevents white from achieving this nice consolidating formation with the knight going to f3, the pawn going to d4, king f2, and so on. In my game, d5 is perhaps not quite as good. It's not bad, but here's one of those places where the knights on c3 and c6 make a difference. That after d5, white should play e takes d5, and here it's probably about equal. I'm not in trouble here, and having broken up his pawn duo in the center is a good thing for me, but he does at least gain a little time with this and avoids the worst. Instead of d5, d6 seems to be the most popular move. b6 is the second most popular move, and it's also the engine's first choice, clearly with the idea of playing bishop to a6 check, preventing, again, white from consolidating his king's position. But okay, d5 is not so bad, and after knight takes d5, now I'm certainly in good shape. This is absolutely not his best move. So bishop to g4 check, and I castled queenside. All about rapid development. I mean, in a position like this, if white can just consolidate in peace, he's going to have a very good position. He's got this nice center. At some point I'm going to lose time moving my queen again. His knight on d5 is pretty good. So, if I just let him get the f-pawn and then put his king on f2 and develop the bishop from f1 to c4 to b5, he'll be in excellent shape. Or maybe play c3 and start bringing pieces over to my queen side. I might have some trouble. So I have to play as actively and forcefully as possible. Now, here you might wonder, well, what should black do after bishop to f4? I considered bishop takes f3 and, some idea like bishop f3, gf3, rook takes d5, and sacking the exchange and going all out for some kind of mating attack. And it's very interesting, but probably not fully sound. But black has a good move that's very simple here. Simply f5, undermining the knight on d5, and threatening f takes e4, which would just win at least a piece. So white played c3 in this position, and here too I should have played f5. This would have been even better than what I did. Although this position isn't quite as bad as the last one. But here too f5 would have been best. But I played knight f6. I played knight f6, trying to develop as fast as I can, and I want to get rid of this strong looking knight on d5. So knight f6, queen f6, and here he played king to f2. So he's getting out of the pin, and he wants to develop his bishop and castle by hand. And again, if I let him do this, he's going to be in very good shape. I mean, he's got some great long-term assets. That's one of the things that's interesting and paradoxical about the King's Gambit. Of course, in the 19th century, it was played as a purely attacking system. White was going hell-bent for a mating attack. I mean, just sacrifice as much as necessary in the King's Gambit, or the Evans Gambit for that matter, and just try to kill the other guy. But in the 20th century, and of course now we're in the 21st century, it's when it's played, much of the time it's played as a more positional kind of opening. White has this beautiful center, and more or less his pieces will more or less find their ways to nice squares. The knight on f3 is a good piece. Okay, the bishop comes to b5 in this particular position. It might be pretty good. Bring the queen to a4, and then just run away if necessary with rook f1 and king g1. Black really doesn't have positional trumps that can compete with white's. So from a purely positional standpoint, white is better. What black has going for him is this kingside majority, so he may be able to just shove all of his pawns at white. So retreat this bishop somewhere, maybe to h5, maybe to d7, play g4, and go to try to cause as much trouble on the king side as possible. But that's not the only possibility here for black, and see if you can figure out what I did here. I realized that while d4 looks very, very strong, it's actually not quite as strong as it may appear. I played bishop to c5. My plan is very, very simple. I'm going to take on f3 if necessary, and then take on d4 with the knight. I'll probably play either rook takes, or depending on what he does. I mean, if his queen runs away, I might play queen takes d4 and then try to go to f2. But I'm just going to break him down on d4, and as strange as it may appear, even though he's got, 3 units covering that pawn, he loses the battle for that pawn, for that square, and he's in huge trouble. In fact, I think white is already losing at this point. He played bishop to e2. Of course, I took, and I took on d4, and I played rook takes d4, and already the position is just completely winning for black. The queen has nowhere safe to go. Wherever she goes, there's going to be a rook move that will pick her up. So if the queen goes to g1, I play rook to d1, and win the queen. If the queen goes to c2, I play rook to c4. Or I can play rook to d2, since it's double check, so there's no possibility of queen takes c5 there. So either move is completely winning. So finally, my opponent just decided to take. I took, king e2. And here I thought for a while. Of course, I saw queen f2 check, and I'm sure that that's mating. In fact, it's what I did, and it is mating. But I spent most of my time here looking at rook to d8, trying to see if there's an even faster way to mate. It's often a very good idea. When you're attacking the king, it's not always the best decision to just give as many checks as possible. Sometimes by doing that, you end up driving the king to safety. So it's often a good idea to try to cut off the exit routes in advance and see if that'll speed things up or make the win more sure. Here the key move is rook f1, and I tried for a while but couldn't quite find a mate. So I saw, for instance, queen c4, king e1, bishop b4, king f2, and okay, if I go back with the bishop, he goes back with the king. If I go to c2, he goes to g1, and he's escaping. I think I thought of queen to c5 just a tiny bit, but I didn't realize that was the winner. So queen c5, king e2, and then queen to c2 check. So this would have been a mate. So it's no faster than what I actually did. Maybe at best they're the same speed, but it would have been a little bit more elegant to give mate that way. So I did it all with checks. Queen f2, king d3. Okay, if king d1, rook to d8, it's mate next move. So king d3, rook d8, king c4, queen c2, king b5, a6, king a5, b6, only moves king takes a6, and queen a4 is mate. So just like a good old-fashioned 19th century game. So send his king out on a long journey where it perishes, and of course, it's the wrong side maybe. So he played the king's gambit. So I guess it was my king that was supposed to go on the journey, but not always. It doesn't always work for the initial gambit here. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to show this game is not because it's so magnificent. I mean, it's an okay example of a blitz game, but all right, clearly it's nothing special. Once my opponent played king f2 and I played bishop to c5, the game was decided already after 10 moves. But what I think is interesting about it and worthwhile is just to emphasize that in a position where, again, your opponent has these positional trumps, it's crucial, it's of the utmost importance to play actively, that you have to take tactical advantage. You have to fight against this. I mean, again, if white consolidates, he's in great shape. So you'll notice, everything I'm doing is geared to rapid development, to be able to put pressure on his king and on the center. So d5, opening up lines, forcing the play. Okay, this check obviously is forcing. Okay, I castle, so I'm protecting my pawn on c7. I'm bringing a new piece into play. I've introduced a possible threat with f5. All right, he played c3. Okay, again, I should have played f5. That would have been another dynamic approach, but okay, I developed knight f6, takes, and here, just one last mistake. King to f2, and now after bishop to c5, it's over. So again, I wasn't intimidated by this pawn center and think, okay, well, do I play g5 and just try to hold on to my pawn? Rather, again, I'm looking for the most aggressive things that I can do here before he consolidates. So bishop to c5 should come to mind. Even if it ends up not working, it's a move you should think about and see, okay, can I break him down here? Because once I sacrifice the piece there, even if there's no immediate win, I'm going to have at least 2 pawns for it. I'm going to have tremendous activity, and his king is not safe. So it's probably going to be a very good deal for me no matter what he comes up with here. All right, so hope you enjoyed this. Certainly it's a lot shorter than the other video, and so it's hopefully at least an easier experience for you. All right, thanks a lot. And before we close this down, let me remind people to check out my blog at thechessmind.net. And also, if you're interested in taking lessons, I offer them. So contact me through my blog, or I guess you can contact me through the server as well. So thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.